Stephen King is going to present the Ellery Queen Award. There's a certain symmetry there. Stephen King obviously needs no introduction. The person who has not been terrified by his work is too insensate to really belong in this room, so if you are here, leave now. But despite his many awards and the international renown that he has, what many of us prize most among his work is his book on writing, which continues to be the go-to book for writers. Stephen King.
This is great. I love it. It looks like I have a lot of remarks, but I don't see very well, so I print big. When I was a kid, I loved to go to town with my mother on Friday afternoons. While she shopped for groceries, I'd go to Robert's Drug and spin the paperback rack. My imagination fired by such 35-cent wonders as The Man with the Getaway Face by Richard Stark, One Monday We Killed Them All by John D. MacDonald, or Murder Me for Nickels by Peter Rabe. There were great blurbs, too. My favorite was on the cover of a book by the prolific Ori Hitt. She hit the gutter and bounced lower. That was the golden age of noir fiction, and but for this year's winner of the Ellery Queen, is this year's recipient, such lurid tales might be gone forever. In 2004, Charles Ardai created Hard Case Crime, a series of paperback novels that featured eye-popping covers and must-have reprints by Lawrence Block, such as The Girl with the Long Green Heart, or Baby Moll by John Ferris. There were new novels as well, such as the memorably titled The Corpse Wore Pasties by the equally memorably titled Johnny Pork Pie. Best of all, and most important, there were rediscoveries, including a long-forgotten crime novel by Gore Vidal, early works by Michael Crichton writing as John Lang, and previously unpublished novels by James M. Cain and Donald Westlake. Charles also published a couple of novels by yours truly, for which I'll be forever grateful. Charles is a true Renaissance man. He graduated summa cum laude from Columbia University. He's a novelist as well as a publisher, a master of the short story, a TV producer, and a computer geek. I could use that on my new book. His second novel, Songs of Innocence, was selected as one of the best books of the year by Publishers Weekly, and the Washington Post hailed it as an instant classic. He is an eager and articulate advocate for the kind of fiction we love to read and write. But his most important contribution to our genre and to American literature in general may be his success in recreating the kind of hard-boiled fiction the mainstream publishers somehow lost interest in since the mid-'80s, around the time John D. MacDonald died. This is a world of tough dicks with tender hearts, bank robberies with smoking gats, cigarette girls with vavoom bazooms, and last chapter shootouts that raise your blood pressure and raise your pulse. Seen as a whole, these books depict an American underclass that fits perfectly with the works of Horace McCoy, James T. Farrell, and Hubert Selby Jr. They aren't always the best part of us, but they are part of who we are. It's my pleasure to present the Ellery Queen Award to Charles Ardai for his creation of Hard Case Crime and its priceless contribution to the mystery field.
Thank you. Jesus, how do I follow that? Thank you. Thank you. This is a terrific honor. All honors are terrific. All awards are. Anytime you receive any recognition from your peers, it means the world. But this particular award means more to me than most for a couple of reasons, some purely personal and some that might resonate for other people in the room. I got my start at Ellery Queen. I was a teenager, 16 years old, walked in the door, got an internship, which means that minimum wage was something to aspire to. And I never got to meet Fred Danné. He died just a few years before I got there, but his successor, Eleanor Sullivan, took me under her wing. She bought my first story. She edited the thing to within an inch of its life. I don't think there was one sentence she didn't change, and it needed it. And I think she wanted to teach me a lesson about writing, but what she really taught me is what an editor does, and I fell in love with it. And what's not to love? You get to spot new talent and nurture it. You get to take a writer's work and make it better. You get to package it up and present it to readers, and they give you money for it if you're lucky. And I decided then that it was something I wanted to do. Of course I wanted to write. I've never stopped and never will. Editing is something of particular value and honor. Eleanor received this award in 1987, coincidentally the same year that I sold her that first story. Joel Davis, my first boss, who published Ellery Queen, also received this award in 1990. Janet Hutchings, who succeeded Eleanor at Queen, and Kathleen Jordan, who was my editor for years at Hitchcock, they got this award. So to receive this particular award means an enormous amount to me. These are my friends and my mentors, and following in their footsteps is an honor. There's a second reason that's less personal, but it's been on my mind, and so I'll take the podium for a minute just to talk about this. Over the past several years, really since the advent of the digital revolution, what editors do has come in for a bit of a drubbing. In certain quarters, you'll hear us described, us being editors, described as gatekeepers, sneeringly derided as people whose primary occupation is preventing authors from presenting the fruits of their imagination to the millions of hungry readers who would otherwise gladly gobble it up. Now, this is nonsense, but it's a particularly pernicious strain of nonsense. And it does a disservice not just to editors, but to readers who benefit from the work of editors even if they don't realize it. I don't think anyone ever sneered at Leonard Bernstein or called him a gatekeeper because he wouldn't let the second bassoon play more. No one calls Spielberg a gatekeeper because he chooses who to cast in his movies. These are artistic professionals, and they shape an artistic experience for an audience, and they're respected for doing that. That's what an editor does too. You're the maestro, you're the director. And if you do your job well, it's not only not an anonymous function or an invisible one, much less an unnecessary one. It's critical, it's one of a kind, and they name awards after you for doing it. We at Hard Case Crime began, this was my partner Max Phillips and I who kicked off this crazy idea. It was a night of drunken revelry at the Blue Bar. You guys can visit it, you're in New York. We said, why don't people publish books like this? That was the key insight. There wasn't more to it than that. And then the second part was, why don't we publish books like this? And then the third was, let's have another drink. And that was supposed to be the end of it. And it very nearly was. And then Max came back 2 weeks later and said, that idea you had about these old-fashioned books, I've dummied up some covers to show you what they might look like if we did this, which we're not going to, but if we did, wouldn't it be fun? And he showed me these covers, and they were so gorgeous. And I said, I need to start writing a book just to fit that cover. And he said, me too. And he wrote Fade to Blonde, which won the Shamus, and I wrote Little Girl Lost, which I was very flattered to have nominated for the Edgar and the Shamus. And we had fun, but it wasn't supposed to last. It certainly wasn't supposed to last 10 years, and here we are, 100-some-odd books later, and Stephen King is saying nice things about me. Where did this happen? I was put in mind as I was coming up here of the old Ellery Queen line, right at the end of their books before they smacked you with the solution to their whodunit, they'd say, challenge to the reader, and then can you solve it? So I was thinking, this is what you gave me, Marjorie. Challenge to the speaker. How do you follow Stephen King? So, what editors do actually does matter. I said earlier that I never met Fred Danné, but that's not true. Because before I worked at Ellery Queen, and before I wrote for Ellery Queen, I was a reader of Ellery Queen. And I met Fred Danné every single month in the pages of the magazine he edited. Every page of every issue bore the stamp of that man's personality, his preoccupations, his vision, his interests. And opening the new issue that came in the mail was like opening the door to a dinner party at the swankiest hotel in Manhattan. And there was Fred Daney at the door to take you by the arm and introduce you around. You know, there's Ed Hoke. Have you met Ed Hoke? You'll like each other. You know, there's Cornell Woolrich. He's a bit moody at times, but you're really going to love his stories. Say hello to Larry Block and Robert L. Fish and Stanley Ellen and Jack Ritchie. And if you bought that magazine on the newsstand month after month, or you subscribed, it was because of him. That's the secret. Each writer was wonderful, but he's the one who put it all together. His magazine was his magazine, and it was his taste and his judgment and his reputation that kept you coming back. And the same thing is true for a line of books. It can reflect the tastes and interests and preoccupations of an individual editor every bit as much as a magazine can, every bit as much as a movie can. I'm reminded, being a foodie, as my wife sitting there can tell you, of going to a restaurant that's a Tom Colicchio restaurant or a Mario Batali restaurant, and you go because you know you're going to like the food. Even if it's not that guy whose hand is on the sauté pan. You know it's his taste, and it's his reputation, and it's his joint, and that's why you go there. It is a great privilege to be one of the chefs responsible for Hard Case Crime. We're proud to have created a line of books that writers want to write for and that readers want to read. And I am very grateful, profoundly grateful for this recognition, not just of my work as an editor, but the work of editors, period, and what editors can accomplish if they set their mind to it, have a vision, no matter how crazy, and are able to bring readers in with something they haven't seen before, even if it's a reissue of Murder Me for Nichols. Thank you.